It's not live. There it is. We are live. Hey guys, welcome to episode 72 with Dr. Chris Ellis. Got a little Tribe Called Quest. Chris, you're over in Naples, Florida. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you being here, making some time. You just finished with a patient. Yep.
Yep. Done for the day.
Nice.
So, yep,
Nice.
1 o'clock in the afternoon. Not a bad schedule.
There you go. And
Yeah,
and that can take us right maybe into our first area of discussion about you are a 100% cash based model there.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And
Which
and
is
do go ahead.
good. Which is kind of unique because this area is a big Medicare population.
Mm,
So I'm going for a very small slice of the pie.
gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole rigmarole out here in the world is there's the Seth Godin concept. You only need that small tribe, those passionate fans
Yep.
to support you. And yeah, I totally believe in that for sure. And again, if it's gonna bring you up and give you passion and energy, that's really what it's all about. So tell us a little about your clinic. It's dynamic physio therapy. I actually very curious because I played with the terminology why you have it as two separate words. Is that just SEO
Um,
type stuff?
no, it was like initially I was kind of going for the DPT thing, like because that's how.
Ah,
Yeah,
I see
that
it.
was the initial thought. I don't really care about that anymore. I don't know why I did that. Because whenever I type it out, it always autocorrects to one word, and I
Right.
don't know. And I think I was also like I like to call us physios instead of physical therapists.
Oh
So
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like that separation. So I don't know. I was
No, I definitely like the physio. I call myself, my company is Fit Care Physiotherapy,
mhm.
for sure. So I think that's definitely, I get that side of it. I was just wondering about the two separate words, but yeah, I guess I
Yeah.
got where that went wrong. But so 100% cash based for anyone listening. I've covered this on a bunch of episodes. I have my other podcast. We were talking about. I was researching you before we jumped on, and you had 3 different podcasts going, right? Is that tell us a little bit of what happened there, why, and where are you today?
So a little bit of shiny object syndrome. Like anybody who's ever like started a business, you kind of want to do everything and say yes to everything, and as you get a little more experience, you start learning how to say no. Well, so the very first one I was approached to do it with, that's the one called Poppin' Bottles. So I have a friend, she's a nurse practitioner. When I opened my cash thing, it was a side hustle job, and I was still working at another clinic basically full time. There was a nurse practitioner there. So it was really her idea to start a podcast. Her premise was I was going to do a piece on physical therapy. She'd do a piece on something nurse practitioner oriented, and then at the end we pop on a bottle of wine and chit chat, and it was supposed to be kind of fun. So that was
Yeah,
the premise there. And I'll still do that. That one is just kind of fun. And then
yeah.
and that one actually has a lot of traction.
Hmm.
And then
I mean,
that
Poppin' Bottles is a great name for sure.
yeah, I actually think there's a couple of podcasts called that. And then when I went full time into my own thing, I kind of connected with this personal trainer named John Williams, and then he approached me to do the Move with Modus podcast. And we've always had a great rapport, so that one just it feels easy. Just hop on a call with him. We don't even plan anything. We just talk and see what
Hmm.
comes out.
Nice.
And then he actually moved up back to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So then I started my own, mostly for networking purposes, just to reach out to people and interview local practitioners in Southwest Florida, and that's
Oh,
really become my bread and butter.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the Dynamic Naples podcast.
podcast. Yep,
Got
that's the one. Yeah,
Want to make sure we shout that out. We'll try to put that in the show notes, although I'm pretty
awesome.
bad at
Thanks.
that. But yeah, we were starting to talk about the direction of physical therapy, cash based. You said you mentioned you were doing the cash based thing as a side hustle. A
Yep.
lot of folks listening might not know unless they're in the physical therapy. Even a lot of practitioners, I think, working in traditional insurance based settings might not even fully grasp what that means. So yeah, if you can share a little bit of
Sure.
that journey, what pushed you in that direction, and give us a little bit of background around that.
So, physical therapy in the traditional sense is not the most lucrative career unless you're doing like travel or, skilled nursing, which yeah, it's terrible, or home health. So, most physical therapists will pick up a job on the side. A lot of outpatient physios will do a little, maybe home health, like see a couple patients on the way home type of thing. And that's kind of what we call a side hustle. I just decided to do a cash based side hustle. So I found a little space, and because I'd had patients reach out to me, hey, I want to see you, but I want it to be one on one. I want to take our time, and So it kind of opened up a space for me to say, all right, we can, I can justify renting a room somewhere and, seeing people basically one-on-one and treating people 100% the way I want to. That's really the key. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I want to do the cash thing, but the key is I want to treat people the way I want to treat them. I don't want to be, you know, told what to do by insurance companies that don't even see the patient.
Yeah, and for again those listening, if you're not familiar, I worked with a few of these cash based kind of masterminds, and some of that is like we do not work for insurance companies, and the insurance company, again, if you're going in as a patient, you might not realize this, but again, the care you're getting is being directed by the kind of guidelines and barriers that are in place, because that's how insurance based contracts get paid out. Is, hey, did they progress this amount? Did you, which codes did you do? You have to do 8 minutes of ultrasound, and then 8 minutes of therapeutic exercise, and document all that. And
Yep.
the cash based model goes significantly around that, and says, and we see it in other countries, right, where insurance is less of a thing, and whatever you want to call it, the socialized model in Britain. Canada is two good examples. Australia, I believe, also has something similar, where again, if you're going in and say, hey, Chris, you seem to know what you're talking about, I'm going to give you whatever, $100 right here. Give me all you got for $100, whatever. Maybe your rate might be double that, so maybe I get a half hour out of you. But so yeah, it's just that exchange of, I value my time, I value your time, I'm willing to pay for your time, and that's the model that I think should be finding its way into the mainstream slowly but surely. It's definitely emerging within our field, I would say, being in kind of the backside of it. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I'd love to hear how you feel about the overall direction of this profession. And are you completely away from insurance now, 100%?
100%. Yeah, and I just want to touch on something real quick too, sort of the adjacent joint concept. So, one of the things that's frustrating as a physical therapist, because our training is like, okay, you got knee pain, let's look next door. Let's look at your hip. Let's look at your ankle, because that's probably where the problem's really coming from. And it gets hard in the insurance world to do that. Like insurance basically wants you to treat symptoms and not fix the underlying problem. So people never really get better. Maybe they get asymptomatic, but they comes back. So it just goes against what we know. It's like our whole ethos is disturbed by the insurance model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyways, to your question, I think it's a super exciting time. People are like, there's more and more cash clinics opening every day. It's getting easier and easier to explain to people how the whole thing works. So it's definitely growing like immensely. I'm in a mastermind group. I see new people being added to it every day, new grads too. It's not just like experienced clinicians. Like it just seems to be like a huge change that's like on the horizon. And I think it's sort of destined to be that way. But with these insurance cutbacks, it's not going to change. Insurance is not going to decide one day, hey, I think we should pay you guys more. So what that means is basically for companies to stay open, they have to have therapists see 2 or 3 people at the same time just to keep the doors open. And then quality of care plummets, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just, I think it's destined to be this way.
Do you want to shout out the mastermind group you're a part of?
Yeah, I'm in Danny Matei's
Yeah.
PT Biz Mastermind. Mhm.
Awesome. Awesome. I'd love to talk to you a little more about that. And again, tying into everything we're talking about here, Danny is the one that put out a book called Fuck Insurance. And I hope that, I don't know if that's going to be enough to give me the censor,
Yep.
whatever that is, but I haven't had too many issues with that. But yeah, that, I mean, basically, yeah, F insurance. I think we're all kind of in that same, hopefully, kind of mindset of we're trying to make that change one clinic at a time, one clinician at a time, every
Yep.
single patient that we see, and totally tying into what you're talking about. I was actually in a book club with a few other physios recently. We're doing it once a month pretty much, and it was Upstream. I don't know if you heard of that book, but basic concept of every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. So when we look at our healthcare system, and we say, hey, obesity is going up, chronic disease is going up, all these issues continue to propagate, musculoskeletal issues continue to be a thing, we are becoming weaker, less healthy, all by almost every metric. And again, I don't know if you know this statistic, is that this is the first generation of children that will it has a shorter life expectancy than the previous generation, and that's the first time in human history that has happened. So I want to touch base with you on something I noticed on your page. outside of the musculoskeletal health stuff, which I think, again, I just did a few podcasts earlier talking about direct access, us being primary points of care. I don't know if you want to talk a little also to the Florida rules around that. If folks sprain their ankle or they hurt their back, direct access, I know, exists in all 50 states, but every state has slightly different rules and regulations around that. Is it unrestricted there, or just real quick on the direct access part of it, if you want to speak on that?
Yeah, right now it's 30 days.
Okay,
But
so
after that, yeah. But after that, you need a script.
Right. So for those listening, again, just if you're not familiar with direct access at home here, it's again, every state has some version of it. Again, if you wake up and your back's hurting, traditional care, you're going to go to, again, if you're especially in that insurance model, you have to go to your primary care physician, general practitioner. They might send you for an x-ray. They might send you for an MRI. They're going to put you on medications. They might do an injection. Think about all the time, energy, cost to all that, and maybe it gets your symptoms better versus
Maybe.
and again, you might just be kicking the can down the road. And again, you might not even get the symptoms better, but alternatively to all those things I just said, you could just go see Dr. Chris in Naples, and you go directly to him. Again, cash-based. There's even insurance-based folks where this applies. Again, of course, different regulations, all that nonsense. But again, you go to him, say, I have back pain. I woke up with back pain. Here's my history, 10 years of blah, blah, blah. And he's going to put you into a situation. Again, well, that's my new slogan. If you guys haven't heard it here on the podcast, is I can help get you better, feeling better, moving better in 30 minutes. We got to put a plan in place for the next 30 days. And that's going to take us into the next 30 years. It sounds like that's very aligned with stuff you're talking about there. But that's kind of the direct access concept of, I have back pain. I'm going to go see a physical therapist, today, instead of going through this entire whole system. And the 30 days he's referring to is if in 30 days you are not significantly better and you're pretty much not out of it, that's where you can say, okay, now we need to send you back. Again, we have the education. We're at a doctoral level as of a few years ago. 100% of graduating physical therapists in America have a doctorate. There are still practicing clinicians who have masters or bachelors going grandfathered back, but still the education level is so high that we can spot and know the red flags to say, hey, like maybe this isn't just back pain. Maybe you do need to go to your physician day 1, or by day 30, things aren't progressing the way we expect them to with traditional situations of, again, slipped discs or herniated discs. Where, I think, again, I heard your recent episode about hamstring injuries or tightness and stretching hamstrings. And I really enjoyed that around, is that causing the issue? So again, that's where we have that ability to again, diagnose. We are a doctoral level profession. People do not realize this all the time. So I unfortunately feel like I need to keep shouting it from this little platform I have here. So coming back, yeah, man, thank you. And again, appreciate you being here. We'll we'll keep going with that. But coming back to it, the one thing I wanted to go off of there was I did want to talk about this whole long-term health concept. And I noticed you have this additional at-home kit testing. Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Let'sGetChecked.com is a company. I just have an affiliate account with them. I love getting, I love sending people out for blood work, find out some, because I've this past year and over the pandemic, I got certified nutrition and really dove deep into the nutrition world, and I'm just starting to tie together the pieces because, it's, we tend to be, mechanical thinking, like, okay, your knee pain is because of this, your ankle. But sometimes there's nutritional deficiencies, and I like to bring that up to people. I also like passionate about, get your diabetes checked, get your cholesterol checked. I just think that so many people are walking around pre-diabetic, don't even know it. And I think that's going into the pandemic. That's a big problem with a lot of people that are dying of COVID are pre-diabetic. So I love the idea of being able to send people out for tests. Well, actually, the kit gets sent to their house. They finger prick themselves, send the kit back in, and they get a call from a nurse practitioner with the results. So, and that just, I try to build that into, okay, well, let's see your electrolytes. Are you deficient in electrolytes? Maybe that's why you're having constant muscle cramping. It just gives me more information.
Awesome. And can I ask again, just curious, what was the certification that you received there? Just because I actually literally recorded an episode yesterday with my personal trainer buddy on the Demand Better podcast, my other podcast,
Uh-huh.
around demanding better from a nutritionist. And we dove pretty deep into differences between the term nutritionist, different certifications, registered dietitian. So yeah, I was curious, where did you get that certification?
I just did ISSA's course, the sports nutrition one, which,
Nice.
to be honest, I don't think is a fantastic course. I don't feel like just that course alone gave me enough to give awesome nutritional advice. But I just got into, I read tons of books, tons of lectures. You really have to seek out a lot of information on your own. I dove deep into some of Chris Kresser's work as
Yeah.
well, and I'm actually thinking about doing his
1
his
year long adapt.
yeah,
Yeah, about health coaching certification.
yep,
Yes.
yes.
So I'll feed off of, again, for those who want to check out the Demand Better from Your Nutritionist podcast. We talked a little bit about calories in, calories out, and as one of the ways to just chat with somebody who you're kind of interviewing as a possible person to work with. So I'm just curious, what is your take on calories in, calories out? Where does that fit into your grand scheme of things? It's not a trick question, but it is.
No, I think it's broken. It's a broken model. I mean, you can lose weight through calories in, calories out. It's basically planned starvation. I think a better way is to access ketosis. So your body has two ways to burn fuel: carbs and fats. So burning carbs is glycolysis, burning fats is ketosis. So if you're constantly eating carbs, and this goes into the sort of the diabetes conversation, you're only burning carbs all the time. And to lose weight, you have to burn all the carbs in your bloodstream, then finally access your ketones or your fats. Well, one way around that is just, maybe go carb deficient a little bit, and your body will naturally burn fat for energy. And it's a much more sustainable energy. By the way, if you get hangry,
Hmm.
that's a symptom that you are basically carb dependent. So if you're always feeding carbs to your body almost like forgets how to use ketosis, and that's a classic sign. By the way, that is termed metabolic inflexibility. If you are not good at going back and forth from carbs to fats, that's metabolic inflexibility, and that's not a good place to be.
I agree. I agree. I like that take on everything. And yeah, the one thing for me that I'll just echo from our episode yesterday, and again, if you disagree, feel free to jump in. But at the end of the day, it comes back to working with and having a guide around, talking you through, and not just having a cookie cutter like, hey, we're just going to put you on ketosis. But even if that is your thing, like, I think based on talking to you, this is what we should try. It's also saying we're going to do this for 14 days or 30 days or whatever the protocol is. And then, having that constant communication around, what are you feeling? Okay, you were hangry on day 7. That's normal, or that's not. And that's a sign of this. And here's some different ways to deal with that. So being able to talk people through, I think at the end of the day, my big takeaway from our episode, and I hope people get it, is again, it's you should have a clinician or somebody working with you, practitioner, who can help guide you through these concepts. There is no one size fits all. And that's the big thing there.
Yeah, and I did mention that I think calories in, calories out is broken. Let me just clarify that. What I mean by that is, I think psychologically, what that can do to people is make them feel real guilty, because to go calories in, calories out long term, which I mentioned is basically planned starvation. In the end, like, you're gonna get hungry and you're gonna lose. So very few people are able to sort of will themselves through that. So I
Right.
think a lot of people sort of fail with that approach and kind of just feel guilty about it. And I don't think that's the way to do it.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I'd love to. We could probably do a whole hour on this alone, but but yeah, again, I think for anyone kind of, I want to fill in that. I feel like there's a little bit of a gap there around the fact that generally calories in, calories out as an approach says, hey, your resting metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate, all these different things, you're going to burn, let's say, 2,000 calories a day, or you're doing an extra hour of cardio and you burn an additional 400 calories, whatever. And then because of that, at the end of the day, what I was trying to convey for folks yesterday on that podcast was, for calories in, calories out, is if the person's able to at least speak intelligently to the concept and say, it's not always, okay, let's burn 1,200 calories because you burn, let's take in 1,200 calories because you burn 2,400 calories. So you're going to lose 1,200 calories a day. by the law of thermodynamics, you're going to lose this amount of weight. But yes, not including and incorporating the psychological benefits, the expectations, the difficulty of eating 1,200 calories a day, which is, some people do, and they have the motivation up front, but then it just catches up to you, and there's hormonal implications and all that. So that debate, again, can go on for hours and days and years and and has. But yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing your take on that, and bringing it back to a little bit of physical therapy stuff. You mentioned you want to talk about hip impingement. I'd love to, see why you chose that. I mean, I love it. A hip impingement. I got to work in New York City at one of the busiest and I would say highly respected physical therapy clinics, and we were very connected to 2 or 3 of the top hip surgeons in the country, in the world, back in New York at Hospital for Special Surgery in Lenox Hill. So hip impingement is definitely one early in my career that a diagnosis that I got very fond of treating. And I feel like there's a lot of really easy peasy things. And I saw, again, on your podcast, talk about plantar fasciitis, again, there's hamstring things, a lot of these common myths that people, if they just go and Google and WebMD, it's leading down these kind of crazy paths, but there's this holistic kind of very easy approach. So yeah, I'd love to hear about your take on hip impingement.
Yeah, I think it ties into what you're saying about direct access. Is a great reason to come see us first and not go rush off to surgery, because that, as a diagnosis, it's really picked up in the past decade. I forget the numbers behind it, but people are going to surgery like crazy rates for hip impingement, and so a lot of times it's much better to do physio. I think success rates around 64% for surgery, which is not great.
I want to jump in real quick, and I'll say a few other things here real quick. Is for anyone dealing with this hip impingement, it's probably going to present as a pinch, which is how I always kind of connect impinge, pinch. So that's one way to remember it. The other term is FAI, femoral acetabular impingement. Again, a little more fancy, and then you can go deeper down the rabbit hole of, is the ball overgrowth or is there socket overgrowth? And then, or sometimes there's both. And again, what they'll do in surgery is shave one of those down, versus, again, this more whatever we want to call it, conservative model. And something else that's come up that I wanted to jump in real quick on is when you say we should try physio first. Unfortunately, and I think you're going to be in the same boat as me here, there's a big difference between cash-based PT or physio and insurance-based physio, because again, they're just handling the symptoms. And that if you go in and you just have you're debating surgery versus not, the conservative approach is one that is poorly defined. So when we say try physio, and again, that means all sorts of different things, because you and I probably, I would bet, have a huge overlap of how we treat, versus, again, like you said, that Medicare physical therapist down the street. We won't even give him the physio title. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there, and I'll let you jump back into it, because I do think these are all very important things for the consumer to understand.
Yeah, and actually, I'm in a hip labral FAI group on Facebook. I sit there and watch people complain all day about these problems. And, I think conservative, many people might mean go get a bunch of injections. That to me is invasive.
And that's, I literally just had this conversation with a patient this morning who's a CrossFit coach and a female, and she was dealing with these hip issues. And I was like, and she was in physical therapy, conservative approach again, and we were doing pretty different stuff. So I gave her some different things, and she, by some of these exercises, and again, I'm going to use the overly generalized terms of, we woke some stuff up, some different muscles that she hadn't been really focusing on and doing it the right way with the right cues. And she began to have less symptoms, go crazy, less pinching, less clicking, all that kind of stuff. So I do think, and her question, which is a common question to your point about platelet-rich plasma, and especially this is something that, again, surgeons, doctors will throw at you, orthopedists. And again, not to say that it's always wrong, but in my experience, what the research shows, I just saw another article that I shared with this patient actually this morning, that a new study showing platelet-rich plasma, which we're not going to go too far down for the sake of time, but does not improve any kind of joint injection. This specific study that came out, I posted on my, I think, LinkedIn, was about knee osteoarthritis. But at the end of the day, I think platelet-rich plasma, as an example, might be useful for tendons, in my experience. But again, you go to 10 different physicians and they might have 10 different protocols on how
Yep.
they're doing it. So it's hard to, just like with this concept of go to a physio. It's like saying, hey, I went to McDonald's and now all restaurants are just not, that's how I view all restaurants. So it's not the same versus a, 3-star Michelin restaurant type of situation. Anyway, back to
Yeah.
you.
And well, this is a bigger question of imaging, right? So everyone rushes off to imaging and they're like, oh, there it is. I have a labral tear. Because by the way, labral tears almost always come with FAI, this hip impingement. And then the question is, okay, was that producing your symptoms? Do you have
Right.
groin pain or lateral hip pain because your labrum was torn? Maybe. I don't know. So the idea with a PRP was maybe to heal that labrum, but people will get that and then they don't get relief because the whole time it might be just a muscular issue. It might be a muscular imbalance. It could be like a micro instability because that labrum does have a role in creating stability in the joint. And maybe you're just the way the femur is sitting in the socket is not the way it's supposed to. So imaging can be just as problematic because now you're tracking, a pathology where it doesn't always correlate to the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, really well established and researched. And tying into, again, two other big concepts I'll add to this conversation is one, the traditional study back when I was a student, 2005 to 2008. I think these studies still exist and are cited often, is you take 100 people on the street, asymptomatic, meaning they have no pain, nothing going on. They're just walking down the street, and you grab them, you do MRIs of them. 72 out of 100 who have no pain. That's the statistic. Again, I'm sure there's other statistics we can throw at you, but that's the one that stands out to me the most and has stood out my entire career. 72 out of 100 people will have something that if you show that to a spine surgeon, they're going to say, I need to cut that open. That looks scary. It's a herniated or whatever, but they have no symptoms. So, another example of that is David Cohn. If you're a Yankees fan, like I am, he pitched a perfect game and they did an MRI at the end of the season. And, he had all these crazy things for his profession and no symptoms. It's just kind of pain that's going on there, but he's able to perform, he's able to live life. And again, within his context, he was able to get, the surgery when it was more needed, and to clean things up. But yeah, that's all contextual and things that are, I think, in terms of hip impingement, it's something that, again, I think needs to be very clear. The other term there, real quick, is degenerative disc disease.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up.
Yep, and that's and I forget which organizations you might know as well. There was a few organizations that came out and said we should not be using this term as clinicians, and it was like the American Academy of Manual Therapists or Physical Therapists, whatever it was, and they said, because again, it's like saying, hey, you have wrinkles. And that's what degenerative disc disease is. Like your discs change over time. There are degenerative changes, but to put that label on it makes somebody scared who doesn't understand that this is just a natural process of aging and doesn't necessarily correlate to symptoms, your quality of life, anything that's actually important to most patients.
Yeah, the language around this stuff is super important because people think I have a disease,
Right.
and it's like, yeah, like you said, you're just getting a little older, there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong
it's
with that.
hey, you have gray hair, like we need to operate. It's it's incredibly it's incredible, the power of language and nocebo, placebo, all these different things. So moving on
Exactly.
to our third topic, though, to smoothly transition, you put in foot obsessed, which I like that term. I noticed you're a little barefoot in most of your videos that I looked at on your YouTube channel. And so, yeah, tell us, again, you also mentioned, I'll connect it back to that, the knee issue. 99.9% of knee issues, folks, are from your feet, ankles, or your hip. The knee is a stupid joint. The knee does not know what it's doing. It's, and again, anytime you have pain, and again, I'm sure you want to echo this or debate me if you need to. You got a little dropping things going on over there.
Yeah, there's a
That's
gym in the
okay.
background.
But the saying is, the knee in that situation is the victim, and the criminals are usually somewhere else. Again, either up at the hip or down at the foot. So I'll just use that to set you up here to talk about the feet, because I do think they often get neglected.
Yeah, so I think of the knee and the elbow as kind of the same thing, right? It's usually a shoulder, a wrist problem, or hip or ankle. I just think that the narrative around feet is kind of backwards, and everyone's trying to throw in orthotics and get the right shoe, and I just think we're we're doing it backwards.
Yeah.
We should be barefoot more often. I think shoe wear should be there just to protect you from like cigarette butts and glass.
Yeah.
Like I have a 3-year-old girl, and I always have her barefoot. You just when you put a shoe on your foot gets, and especially an orthotic, your foot gets to relax, and it's like having a cast on. It just it
Mhm.
gets it gets weak and atrophies, and There's no surprise that all of us have flat feet and plantar fasciitis and all these issues. So yeah, I make a point to be barefoot most days. It just happens to be a little cold today, so I'm actually wearing shoes. But 95% of the time, I am barefoot in the clinic. I walk around barefoot. I'm wearing my
Will
toe spacers and everything.
Will you join me in the anti-Hoka support group? I think every time I see Hokas, for those not familiar, those are the really big cushiony shoes that, again, they're just it's walking on. People say it's super comfortable, and I believe you. So is sitting down in a couch, but that's not going to lead to good things for our bodies. Our bodies are not meant to be in these very comfortable positions. We need to challenge our bodies. We need to keep our feet strong. And again, like you're saying, if you don't use it, you kind of lose it. So that's where flat feet is a bit of a chronic thing, and we're going to see, I think, more and more of that over the years. And so foot obsessed. So let me ask you, what do you do other than encouraging barefoot? Are there other concepts you're putting into place with feet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with looking at the shoes. Okay, all right, you're basically wearing high heels. You got like a 1 inch heel on the backside, and then the other thing too is the toe box and the toe spring, right? So you get a lot of shoes that are really narrow that squeeze your toes together, and then they have a toe spring. So in other words, if you're in your shoes and I can slide my thumb underneath your big toe when you're at rest, that's a toe spring. Your big toe is elevated. So if you remove the shoe and think about that foot position, you're in this plantar flexed and toe extended position, and that's just not a natural position for the foot. The toes basically become inactive in that situation. Your toes are super important for balance. They're there for a reason. They're there to support the arch. So if you're not using them, your arch is going to fall apart. And then we're trying
Yeah,
to solve that by sticking a post underneath the arch, aka an orthotic. It's called an arch for a reason. It's supposed to be non-weight bearing. So that's step one, is I just educate about shoe wear, try to progress to something with zero drop. I will say if you go from like an elevated heel right to a zero drop, you're probably going to have some pain in the way. So I try to progress people slowly into that.
yeah.
And then,
The funny
but
example there is I was in New York City when the book Born to Run came out, and for those not familiar, Chris McDougall really encouraged barefoot running, and there's a couple million runners in New York City, and we were in a very busy clinic. And after that book came out, and people went from these very cushiony shoes for running and running whatever 100 miles a week to barefoot or Vibram 5 fingers, which was the thing at the time. People would switch to that to protect from glass and cigarettes and things like that. We saw a lot of problems. It was great for the physical
yeah,
therapy industry. We had shin splints, we had all sorts of overuse injuries, things like that. So there's definitely, again, where similar to the diet nutrition concept, if you're making some of these changes, this is and this is where, again, I think I don't know how we're going to get this into the mainstream, but the same as like before you start any exercise program, please check with your primary care physician or whatever. Same thing is like before you make any of these changes, check with your guide, your Sherpa, your movement person, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, I'd love it for it to be physical therapist, but that's the problem. We're terrible at marketing. So outside of that,
yeah.
I do think, that's a whole nother, again, can of worms that we don't need to open up right now. But I do think that, again, in terms of primary care, musculoskeletal physicians, clinicians, however we term it, we need to keep pushing that. And again, like these are such simple things. And again, I'm so glad we're on the same page. And again, I feel like we could, echo each other a lot. And I feel like we're in that echo chamber a little bit. But yeah, I think it's important to keep repeating these messages. And I always love, I go back to the same stuff for almost everyone I work with is breathe better, position yourself better. Right now I'm standing. I don't want to pick on you if you're sitting. I do think you're sitting there. That's okay. But I'm standing, I'm playing with my dog here. That's okay. I don't want to guilt you into it. But you're probably on your feet the rest of the day, right? So
Yeah.
I try to be as up and about as I can. So I'm not in a busy clinic. I work more one-on-one, and I do a lot of online stuff too. So I'm standing desks don't fix everything. It becomes almost a shift too far in the other direction, where now people are standing the wrong way for 8 hours a day, and now that causes its own problems. But anyway, you got someone working really hard in the back there. It sounds like he's breathing pretty hard there.
Oh yeah. We have a pretty busy gym. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm in a saddle stool, so so
Okay.
it takes a little less hip flexion, and I my computer is on a milk crate, so I'm sitting a little more elevated.
We'll give you some bonus points there.
I'm
That's
halfway there,
okay.
halfway there.
That's okay. So we do want to be respectful of your time, the listeners' time. My dog keeps shoving balls in my leg here to play fetch. But any other major things you want to leave folks with? Again, big takeaways, concepts that you have what's the Tim Ferriss question is, if you had a billboard in Times Square, what would you have it say?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one. But kind of going to our other point, I do feel bad for the average person out there that's not a physical therapist, that's trying to sort through all the information these days. There's so much information, and it's important to keep in mind that the pendulum swings back and forth,
Hmm.
in any field. And just look at the shoe wear conversation we just had. What was the advice a decade or two ago? Like, you need a stable shoe or a comfort shoe, or it's somehow, like, Nike has been awesome with their messaging and worked their way into the medical field. But it's always good to keep in mind that there is a pendulum in any industry, and usually somewhere in the middle is the right answer.
Yeah, sometimes, sometimes.
Sometimes.
I mean, barefoot's pretty extreme the other way,
Right.
So I don't know if that's in the middle, but
Yeah.
I don't know if like Innovate shoes or Vivo Barefoot or Zero shoes, XERO, some of those are good options. I'll shout all those companies out if and you guys go support those smaller companies, I guess. Zero, ironically, actually was looking for an assault bike after moving out here to Colorado, and I found one listed. Went to check the guy out. It was actually the president, owner, CEO of Zero Shoes. So got to connect with him and chat about some of that barefoot stuff. So
Oh, very cool.
random fun story there. But yeah, definitely want to shout out those companies. And again, if you guys need any help with any of the barefoot stuff, toe spacers, it sounds like all things that should, again, I think in our opinions here, be implemented for 100% of humans to get us back to kind of healthier, longer term solutions. But yeah, I like that concept. So cool, man. Tell everybody which of your many podcasts they can find you at, or anywhere else where it seems like the website might be the best place to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, the website is dynamicnaples.com. All the websites are there in the learn section. But right now, the Dynamic Naples podcast, that's my local one. I do a lot of ranting on there, so I do a lot of solo stuff, but then I also interview other healthcare practitioners that are like-minded.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Before we wrap up, I actually want you to share your elevator story, just how you got
Oh,
into physical therapy. I feel like, usually we do this at the beginning, but it was a pretty interesting story when you shared that. So if you don't mind sharing it.
okay. For the non-physios out there, most physical therapists get into it because they broke themselves somehow and found rehab. Not all of us, but I'd say most of us. And it's funny because I have this story that, I was going into PT school, like doing my interviews, and I'm like, oh my god, I have this awesome story, and I'm totally gonna get into any school I want to because it's so inspirational. And then I'm talking to the other candidates; they all have like similar stories. Mine's a little different, I guess. So, in my 20s, I was living in San Francisco, actually, and I was working in a $13 million home where they were installing an elevator. And I was doing carpentry, like trim work. So I was measuring the trim, what was going to be the trim around the elevator shaft door, and somehow I managed to fall in there, and I fell 4 floors. I fell through some wood on the way down, which slowed my fall and saved my life, basically. I landed on my butt in kind of a partial fetal position with my outstretched hand. So I fractured my pelvis, L1, and my wrist. Um, Went to San Francisco General. The nurse told me they thought I was going to be dead on arrival when they saw the reports. Had terrible health care. I was actually sitting in a gurney in like a hallway for most of the evening. And then, 24 hours later, they gave me some Vicodin, a cane, and said, good luck. And that was the extent of my health care. Sat in my apartment in San Francisco, taking Vicodin, in a lot of pain, gaining weight, getting depressed, just, that downward cycle that very quickly happens. Finally moved back to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where my parents were living at the time. Saw my family doc and got straightened out on the right path. Went to physical therapy. 8 months later, I had no cast, no surgery at any point, and was in the best shape of my life. And everything changed. Dropped like 40 pounds, depression lifted. And I was like, this is what I need to do. That's the short version.
I appreciate you sharing it, man. And again, yeah, if you are out there and you're a patient and you know a physical therapist, I'd be curious for you to ask them. Because again, I would say, in my experience, I would estimate it to be over 75% of PTs kind of have some, obviously maybe not as intense of a story, but I would say I found my way in this direction from an injury, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I was going to be a sportscaster, or I definitely wanted to work in sports. So either sportscaster, and then I sprained my ankle. Our team doctor was a chiropractor. I was going to be a chiropractor. I was like, yeah, I don't like that whole philosophy. Then I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I was like, I don't like that whole philosophy. And then I found physical therapy, kind of to your point, in between, if you will, the right fit there. And then and again, I've told that story a few times, but I don't want to take up again any more of your time, and my wife needs the room. So but I really appreciate you being on here, Chris. Enjoy the weather over there in Naples, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Hope you got 1% better. If you have questions, if you got something out of this, I hope you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, reach out to either one of us, and we hope to hear from y'all soon. And enjoy the holidays. Today is Thanksgiving Day Eve. I'm going to Friendsgiving later. And
Nice.
Any plans, Chris, for you?
My brother just moved to Naples, and my parents are in Fort Myers, which is about 45 minutes away. So finally, we get to have a nice, easy family dinner. We're actually going to do it poolside at my brother's new place. So yeah,
rough, man. That's
kind
rough.
of atypical. Yeah.
Well, enjoy that, and we're going to